Gaudy. So Gaudy. So Gaudy. Gaudy stats. Gaudy stats. Good God, that's Gaudy. Welcome to Gaudy Stats
with Ben Simmons.
What's on the menu, Benny boy?
How you doing? You hanging in? Hunkering down? Laying low? Being a hermit. You know, it's kind of fun being a hermit. You know, I think it depends on your personality. You know, I'm kind of introverted. Maybe I'm in like the gray area there. But I don't mind being a hermit, you know. People can be annoying sometimes, right? Mouth breathers, you know, yapping all the time, spitting on you, giving you the Rona. Well, I've been quarantined. It's been hard without the sports, hard without basketball. Whew. But you know, in the grand scheme of things, is it really that hard? Come on, I got millions of hours, lifetimes of entertainment at my fingertips, and I'm complaining. But no. I think it's going as well as it can go at this point. Personally, in terms of how it's working for the country, well, I don't know, man. It's gonna get bad. It's gonna get much worse before it can get better. That's for damn sure. But let's join hands, sing some Kumbaya, and hug each other closely, firmly, awkwardly, and get through this together. You know, pound the rock, as Popovich would say. Do your job, as Belichick would say. But today, Dan and I, at Dan's suggestion, we're going to talk about a very special player, a unique player, a rare player, in fact. The fastest player I've ever seen. I was watching the highlights. Incredible. You know, not my kind of player, as I touched on with Dan. I'm in favor of efficiency, of great shooting percentages, things like that. But this guy was the whole offense for his team. He kind of took on an offensive load, such a big one, in fact, that he had to shoot as many times as he did. And his percentages at times suffered. But they built a team around him. Big, strong, large men. Tyrone Hill, Matt Geiger, Theo Ratliff, Dikembe Mutombo, amongst others, who rebounded the ball, blocked shots, played great defense. And Iverson would heave many a shot at the rim. They would get the rebounds. You know, he wasn't the most efficient. He was sub 40% shooting for some years, but it was his emotion, his tenacity, his defense, like his stealing. Although Dan says he would gamble sometimes on the defensive end, but the steal numbers are out of control. The points per game is out of control. We'll get to it all. I don't want to touch on too much now. I'm talking about Allen Iverson, the answer. I call him Alien Iverson because he was an alien. He was extremely quick. He was extremely fast. He was small, but somehow still scored 30 points a game multiple times. Hall of Famer. We touched on it. His Hall of Fame speech was incredible. I just actually watched it. Dan suggested I do so, and it was the emotion pouring out of that guy. Such an interesting guy, unique player, as I said, fun to watch. Hope you enjoy this pod. Hope you're doing all right. Stay strong. Help out those in need, and all the best to you.
So I've been playing video games, something called Stardew Valley, which is like, it's 3 years old, and it's basically just like a farming sim, but also has like fantasy elements. It's very relaxing.
How do you spell that? Stardew?
Yeah, like Stardew.
Okay. Oh, that looks pretty cool.
Huh. It's fun. Been watching some Netflix, some show called The Outlander, where like some woman goes back in time to Scotland. It's like horrifically violent, and I was not expecting that.
Is it? It's not like The Highlander, is it? No.
It's pretty similar.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't. Does The Highlander involve time travel?
Yeah, there is some time travel. It's a lot of sword play and like oh man, it's been a while since I've seen it. The Outlander, just judging by the photos I'm looking at, it looks more like a different time period than the Highlander. Highlander is kind of like knights and I don't know. There's a lot,
Yeah,
as I said.
Outlander's like 200 years ago. So
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, that's a different time period, so it's pretty good.
yeah, it's good. Like I said, really, really violent. I mean, it's originally a Stars show, and if you know anything about Stars' original programming, it's that it's basically violence and softcore pornography. Um, I didn't realize it was Stars when I started, but this is the same network that gave us Spartacus, and Spartacus was just like incredibly violent and just a whole lot of nudity from both genders.
Well, it sounds
So
like an all-American show.
yeah, I mean, I recommend both. Don't expect to be like deeply mentally stimulated, but that's fine.
No, I echo some of the sentiments on our group chat. I'm in the mood for just like mindless, funny, programming. So I don't need to be simulated too hard right now because might go to a dark place. Especially like I've been watching Better Call Saul and it's just dark, man. I mean, it's good, it's great, but it's the kind of show that gets your heart rate up. It's like goes to some disturbing places. So yeah, I'm looking for some mindless, some silly programming, silly movies. All about it right now.
Maybe you don't want to watch Outlander then.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, I also, as you know, I spent an entire day compiling football stats for various teams.
That was amazing. We
yeah,
can
I think
go
I
over
got-
some of that right now if you want. I mean, I was thinking about that because that was so comprehensive what you did. How many hours did you spend on that?
like 2.5.
Nice. And so just if you wouldn't mind giving like a brief overview of exactly what you did because it was pretty cool.
Well, in the group chat that's also named after this podcast, you have someone you went to high school with, correct?
Yeah.
Who was
The
insisting that insisting that the AFC East was not the shittiest division over the last 20 years. And despite Sam proving numerous ways that it in fact more or less was, this of course excludes the Patriots themselves.
So really fast, I'll interject. So Sam, we went through all the different conferences in the last 20 years during the Patriots dynasty, basically, and the AFC East only had out of the three other teams besides the Patriots had a total of 12 playoff berths, and this is the criteria, the metric that Kemp wanted us to measure the conferences, like how many playoff berths were there besides like the dominant teams in each division. Sorry, I say conferences in each division. So we went through all the divisions, and sure enough, the AFC East had the least amount of playoff berths by like 4. They had 12, and the next lowest division I think had 16. So
right,
continue.
and that was excluding the team that made the playoffs the most.
Yes, exactly.
Then the metric that Kemp wanted us to do was wild card berths. It's like, the Patriots kept winning all these division titles. So how many times did the other teams make the playoffs? And just total wild card berths per each division. The AFC East was tied for last with 9. Patriots don't have any, but they have won the division 17 times out of 20 years, which is remarkable.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane. Yeah. The dominance.
Yeah, and it's 17 out of the last 19 really because they didn't make it in 2000. So every other division had at least 10 except for the AFC West. So there is some arguments in terms of like shitty overall records, but the thing that really dispelled it, like for example, the AFC West has like shittier average. The AFC East, NFC West, shittier average records, but those teams like all have been to the Super Bowl, whereas I don't think the Jets, Miami, and Buffalo have won a combined 5 playoff games in the last 20 years. Like the number might be 5, and so it's
not
that they were the absolute bottom. It's just that they've never been good enough to even make the Patriots sweat, which is sort of the
Yeah,
argument
they
that
never
came along with
challenged
it.
them. Yeah, they never
Right.
challenged. There was no challenger at all, basically. I mean, like we were talking about it. I think it was the Mark Sanchez Jets teams were the only team that gave them trouble, and there was like a brief, like 2 to 3 year run there. Um, and it was not really much of a challenge. I think they beat them once, maybe in the playoffs. I'm not sure about that,
Mhm.
um, but they had some dominant teams too. But it's just we poke a lot of fun at Kemp, but he deserves it because the Patriots have been. Maybe he doesn't deserve it, but the Patriots have been so good that it's all we have is like these little petty insults. I mean, they've been so dominant that. But we'll see now. We'll see if they're dominant now. I think Kemp and I are going to do a Patriots podcast, so we'll get into that. We'll ask him if the Patriots will continue to be good. I have my doubts, but we'll see.
I mean, again, you sort of look at the division, and it's like maybe the Bills can overtake them, but
Yeah, their defense is still
I'm
going
not
to be
about.
good next year. So
Yeah, and we know what Belichick can do with a system quarterback, so all he needs to do is find another one. And
exactly. I mean, but I say not as good. I meant like they won't win as many Super Bowls.
right,
They
they'll
still might
probably
win
only
one
win
Super
one.
Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, he
Yeah.
just had the greatest system quarterback of all time for 20 years. So
Yeah.
now, if he just finds a good one for the next 20, he'll maybe only win like 3 Super Bowls. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was really difficult for me to admit it, but he is the greatest quarterback of all time. I mean, he is a system quarterback, but so is Joe Montana in a certain regard in the West Coast offense and everything. Um, I'm a Brady hater, but even I have to admit, like the resume is too good at this point to
yeah, I mean, there's
to debate it. Unfortunately, it hurts.
there's
It
really
hurts
nothing to argue
deep.
with. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
But enough Pats talk. Uh, we or did you finish your thing about about the records and everything? Did I cut
well,
you off?
I mean, it wasn't so much that I got cut off. It's just that there's a bunch of interesting data in here. I think I might have gotten one thing a little
Yeah.
bit wrong because I have 17 ties, which doesn't make sense. But so maybe one team is off by like 1 or 2. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting that in the AFC East, none of the teams other than the Patriots are bottom 5 in terms of winning percentage, but
Wow.
the other 3 are all bottom half. And it was interesting that like the NFC West has 3 teams that are also bottom half, but again, all 3 of those teams have gone to a Super Bowl because it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
the Niners have been mostly bad for the last 15 years, but when they were good, they were really good.
Yeah. There were some dark
Same
ages there for sure.
for the Rams and same for the Cardinals. So, it's like, yeah, those teams have had a lot of 4 and 12 years, but they've also had some really good ones that like the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Bills have not had. So,
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, because like I was thinking about it when you were talking about the NFC West. I was got a little nervous. I was like, oh shit, the Cards have sucked for huge stretches. The Niners have been horrible. Like Geezy, Michael, and I were always just had our heads in our hands for years, like during the Alex Smith years when they had a different offensive coordinator each year. And, the Rams sucked for a long time. But then when you go back 20 years, there was a Greatest Show on Turf there for a little bit. There was obviously more recently um, for the Rams. And then the Cards had Carson Palmer. They had Kurt Warner for a while, those little mini eras. And then the Niners with Kaepernick, that brief and Alex Smith at the tail end. So yeah, they even that division had more playoff bursts than the AFC East, which was surprising.
it was another metric, and this is sort of subjective, but if you look at every other division, there's at least 2 quarterbacks who were MVP candidates, and except for the AFC East, which there is only 1. So,
Wow.
like, if you look at you could argue that in the NFC East, every team's had one except maybe the Giants, and that guy won 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So,
Yeah.
and Washington would have only been the Robert Griffin year, but still, at least that's 1 year. In the NFC North, you've got Aaron Rodgers, you got Brett Favre, and you got two to a lesser extent, Culpepper and Stafford, and well, really nobody on Chicago.
Culpepper
But
was damn good there for a while. Yeah.
he was, and in the NFC South, you've got Drew Brees, of course, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, all of whom have won MVP. Oh no, Brees hasn't won an MVP, but that's just like weird bad timing on his part.
Yeah, that is strange.
Going up against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And then
so like that's a good point. Like so Brady faced like pretty weak quarterback competition. Like when you just look at the other teams, the quarterbacks, it's just a horrible collection of quarterbacks for the most part. And now he goes to a division with Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, albeit, older version of Drew Brees, but still effective.
And Teddy Bridgewater.
And Teddy, that's right. I keep forgetting he's on the Panthers. Damn, he played so well last year. I was impressed. I was aroused and impressed by his play. He's and he got a nice contract too. He's getting paid, which is great. After all he's been through with his injury and everything, it's fantastic to see. Teddy Two Gloves. Love to see it.
He's a rare feel-good story in the NFL.
Yeah, seriously. Very rare indeed.
The best quarterback in the AFC East in the last 20 years, not named Tom Brady, is Chad Pennington, Ryan Tannehill. Like who are we talking about here?
Jesus Christ. Yeah. See, that is
Josh
so.
Allen? I don't think so.
That's so damning. But the fact that Josh Allen is up there already, like, and if you watch Josh Allen, like, that I'm a fan. I love his like chaos and how he's just like, I call him like a homeless man, Steve Young. He's just like running around, throwing interceptions, like running for 30-yard gains and like crashing into linebackers. And he's so much fun to watch. But the fact that he's like, you can actually even mention him as like the best quarterbacks of that era after like 3 years or whatever it is, 2 years of Josh Allen is like, it's crazy. Like that is such a sad pool of quarterbacks. That's damning. It's a damning point you just made.
And realistically,
God.
like the second best quarterback in the AFC East over that time might be Drew Bledsoe. So,
yeah,
he had a couple years with the Bills. So
he was good there. Yeah, I mean he had a couple nice years. He's always been a statue, but he's got a huge arm. He was pretty good there for a little bit. But what a decision by Belichick to go to the Patriots instead of the Jets. That was like one of the all-time great decisions. I think he was set to go to the Jets, and then he at the last minute went to the Patriots. So it all worked out for him.
He still could have drafted Brady or the Jets, and then we'd be having a very different.
That's a good point.
I'm sure them being the Jets, they would have found a way to make it not work. But
that's a good. That's what I'm saying. Like the Jetsness of the whole thing would have probably dragged him down. I mean, the Browns stank was all over him when he was a coach in Cleveland. That drug him down. I mean, if Belichick, even the greatness of Belichick couldn't succeed in Cleveland, like think about that. That's how bad it is. That's how horrible the curse, whatever curse was put on them, is.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland is the only team on this list to not win 100 games.
And they only had one playoff berth in the last 20 years. 2002.
Yeah, and it was like 17 years ago.
Machine Gun Kelly, Holcomb.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
That was when we graduated high school.
I believe that is right. Yes, because they won 10 games in 2006, but still didn't make the playoffs.
Oh, that's right. That's kind of that was with Derek Anderson. That's right. They had a pretty good. That was with Derek Anderson. Who's that receiver? Oh my God, it's skipping. It's
Braylon Edwards.
Braylon Edwards when he had his 16 touchdowns.
And Kellen Winslow. Yeah.
And Kellen Winslow. I'm a soldier.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now a convict.
That's true. Fuck, I forgot about that. Well, my friend, we want to talk about the alien Iverson, Allen Iverson, the answer?
Allen Iverson. I mean, he always holds a place near and dear to my heart, as he does for pretty much any Philadelphia sports fan.
Yeah. What is like? Just talk about that a little bit, because I just really briefly, I'll just say, I got to come out clean. He's not the kind of player I usually like. He's kind of inefficient. He's a volume shooter. One thing I love about him though is his steals numbers are insane. Like the dude averaged, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but he averaged 2.8 steals one year. We'll talk about that later. Um, but as I've looked over his stats, I've started to gain a little bit of an appreciation for him, and I know he had such a huge load that he was put upon him, that he had to such a high usage player and, like, take so many shots and everything. But I was I love that run they made in the finals, but I was never that big of a fan. So I want to hear about, like, what he means to Philadelphia, like what about him, like why you guys fell in love with him besides the numbers and the stats and everything, but like what he means to Philly. I'm curious.
So he's probably the most beloved Philadelphia athlete of my lifetime. That's not going to include guys like Dr. J or Mike Schmidt, even though he's probably more beloved than either of them anyway. But this is despite the fact that he never won a championship, which is not to say that we've had a lot to choose from in Philadelphia, but we do have a few guys at this point. But I think it's because, there's a lot of reasons to it. It's that he so immediately embraced the city, and that immediately endeared him to us. This was also right around the time, like, he got drafted 1 overall. It was right around the time that JD Drew refused to sign with the Phillies.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's like, oh, well, fuck that guy. We got somebody who does want to be here. His name's Allen Iverson. And then, like, he was really good off the bat. And, yeah, you're right. His shooting percentage numbers are never good. And he was a volume shooter, but he averaged 23.5 points as a rookie, And
oh, yeah. His points per game numbers are out of this world. Like, I was blown away. I forgot.
Yeah, he's pretty high all time in points per game. He's 7th. So
that's crazy.
That was something. And, like, it's also, Philadelphia's always had, like, this, whether it's deserved or otherwise, chip on its shoulder, underdog mentality. We're less than 100 miles away from New York, which is like the center of the universe. And so, for, like, it's never, we were also, like, superstar deprived. It'd been like 10 years at least since we had anybody even close to that level of stardom on any team. Basically since Dr. J retired and Barkley left. So we were quick to embrace him in that regard. And I think the fact that he was, like, really little was definitely something that, made us embrace him, because, like, we almost had to be protective, because I know he's listed at, like, 6 feet tall, but
no way.
Everything I've heard is not that big. And also everything I've heard is that he like he's listed at 165. I don't think he was that heavy. And I mean, you just watch him, like, bouncing around off of guys and, just doing all kinds of shit that seemed impossible and scoring at angles that didn't make any sense. I mean, it's a rare athlete that when you watch him, he just makes you laugh. And not because, like, he's doing something embarrassing, but because he's doing something that it's so absurd that you can't really understand it. LeBron has had that effect on me. Lionel Messi has had that effect on me. And Patrick Mahomes definitely has that effect.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Allen Iverson had that effect because, like, he would just do things that didn't make sense. And, yeah, he shot too much, and those steals numbers were inflated by him taking a lot of extra risks on passing lanes. But, you could do that with Theo Allen. Yeah, but, I mean, you could, he had guys who could block shots behind him so he could take those risks.
That's true. But, yeah. Theo was underrated. He was good. He was a great defender.
Yeah, he was really good. I mean, he was the main part of that team for the first 2/3 of the year until he got hurt and they traded him. But Iverson just, like, he loved Philadelphia, and that's, if you want to endear yourself to Philadelphia, that's all you really need to do. Like, you can look at right now Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, right? Joel Embiid openly and unapologetically loves Philadelphia, and Ben Simmons is just kind of like, whatever. And, he still plays really hard, and I like Ben Simmons a lot, but there's a reason that Embiid is the guy that everyone loves.
That's fascinating. That I hadn't thought about that angle. That's a great point. Ben Simmons is kind of like, does he have a personality? I mean, is he an android? Like, he just seems like
way.
Yeah. But you're right. Embiid really likes Philly. Like, he's genuinely likes it.
He does. And, like, if you want Philadelphia to like you, you just need to reciprocate. And, that was the biggest thing about JD Drew. It wasn't even that, like, he was that good at baseball, and he was pretty good, but it was that he didn't want to come here. So that's why people threw batteries at him. And maybe we don't actually condone that action, but, you know, for me, the bigger concern would be like hitting an innocent bystander. You know, because JD Drew had a helmet on and like whatever, he's a big guy, he can defend himself. But, you know, there's probably a lot of people who didn't have very good arms and they might have hit some people in the crowd below them. So I don't approve of that. But like JD Drew is still my least favorite athlete of all time. And other than not wanting to come to Philadelphia, he never did anything to Philadelphia. So, and like, it's been 20 years, more than that, it's been 25 years. And like, of all the guys I could really hate, like, he's the one I hate the most. And so it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And I'm not alone. There are a lot of Philadelphians who still feel that way. And Allen Iverson is like the opposite of that, because he just, for all of his faults, and there are many of them, he was like, yeah, I'm Philly. This is who I'm going to be. And I'm going to go get drunk at a casino till 6 a.m, and then I'm going to score 40 points at a basketball game. And I'm going to, you know, carry a gun around even though I shouldn't. And like, but I'm, you know, I'm going to play my ass off. And even though I should practice more, maybe I won't. But, you know, like, you can never look at him and be like, oh, that guy's not trying hard. And I mean, his minutes per game back that up. So
the minutes per game, I mean,
he's fourth all time.
I know, man. He averaged 41 minutes a game for his career, which is like, especially in this day and age, it's so eye popping. Like, because obviously, you know, superstars especially aren't playing as many minutes. Like Giannis, I think was averaging 29 minutes a game or 30 minutes a game when the season ended this year. Got temporarily postponed. We'll see. So it's just fucking crazy. I mean, like, he was on the court so much, and like the durability was pretty impressive. I mean, there's some seasons where he didn't play, obviously a lot of seasons where he didn't play 82 games, but at the same time, when he was on the court, like he played his ass off. Like I watched a bunch of highlights. I remember watching him a lot as a kid even. He wasn't my favorite player, but just the fact that he would consistently like throw himself into bigger bodies and was always attacking the hoop. Super impressive, man. Like, and what I wanted to ask you as well was, so you think he is the most popular Philadelphia athlete besides Rocky Balboa, of course?
Well, again, A, not of the same era. B, fictional. C, nobody's touching Rocky. Rocky's number one. So, because damn it, Rocky was a winner.
As he should be, man. He was a champion of the world. I mean, come on.
But I mean, like, to compare him, the only guy you could probably hold up against him is also someone who never won a championship, Brian Dawkins, for a lot of the same reasons.
Oh yeah.
Like, he just laid it all out there, and Philadelphia fucking loves Brian Dawkins.
He's a great dude
in
general.
When they were doing retiring McNabb's number, they made sure Brian Dawkins was there to like introduce him so that nobody would boo. So, and it worked, you know. And even though like I and most Philadelphians appreciated McNabb, he was nowhere near beloved the same way that Iverson or Dawkins was.
Why is that? Why is that? Why do you think the reason is for that?
I mean, it was he didn't really. McNabb had like sort of somewhat thin skin, and you know,
that's true.
He got criticized a lot, and a lot of it was unfair. But like, if you're gonna play in Philadelphia, you need to just let that shit roll off you. Like, you don't engage with the Philadelphia sports media because it's not gonna go well for you. So, you know, but McNabb would sort of push back against that, and that made it seem like he was complaining, even though he was playing at an elite level for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, the idea that Donovan McNabb wasn't good enough to win a Super Bowl, like, of course he was. It just didn't happen. But, which happens to a lot of quarterbacks. And so,
yeah,
you know, it's like Tom Brady has lost to two different quarterbacks who were worse than Donovan McNabb in Super Bowl. So, you know, it's
good point.
But he didn't quite have that person. Like Iverson, you could criticize Iverson all day, and he would just be like, "Okay, I'm going to go out and play harder now." So, you know, and McNabb wasn't quite like that. And I mean, you got guys on the Phillies who won a championship in 2008 who are universally beloved, but like they had to sort of spread the glory around. Like, you know, Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Cole Hamels, Jimmy Rollins, like they all get plenty of credit and everybody likes them, but none of them are like singularly focused the way that Iverson was. So
Mm,
because, and this sort of brings us back to his shooting numbers and everything.
yeah.
There was nobody else on those teams who was any good. And like, I don't mean to say that like none of them were even average NBA players. Some of them were above average. Dikembe Mutombo was still good at that point.
Al Korver.
But yeah, but Korver wasn't on that championship team. They really
No,
could
I
have used
know.
him.
Yeah, I know. They really could have. But you're right.
But
Like
like,
Aaron McKee was like their kind of wing, right? Their
he was their sixth man, and
yeah.
so like their starting lineup that year, like after the Ratliff trade, it was like Dikembe Mutombo, Tyrone Hill, George Leach, Allen Iverson, and Eric Snow. Okay,
Oh
one of these
God.
things is not like the others. So
Isn't it crazy that Eric Snow and Iverson were sharing the backcourt when neither one of them could shoot threes? Really? I mean, that's kind of like that's like something you'd never see in today's game. I mean, Iverson could
no, I
shoot.
don't,
He could. He's a career 31% 3-point shooter, but like he could get hot for sure. But Eric Snow like famously couldn't shoot. He like basically was like free throw line in like his range.
yeah, I'm not sure Eric Snow would be able to play in today's NBA.
I don't think he would, honestly. Maybe he's like a small
And
forward, like a defender kind of guy, but like maybe like 10 minutes a game or something. But he can't shoot.
and you know, and part of this is because over Iverson's entire career, at least the first 6 or 7 years, other than him, the Sixers drafted so poorly that like there was never anybody there. Like they drafted Larry Hughes instead of Paul Pierce and Dirk, you know? Like and like
Jesus.
okay,
Yeah.
Dirk wasn't obvious, but Paul Pierce was. So,
Can you imagine,
like
like, do you think Philly would eat Dirk up though? I don't know. I don't know if he could survive in Philly. Those first 3 years he had were so bad that he might have gotten like he was fostered so carefully in Dallas. I feel like in Philly he might not have survived. I don't know.
maybe, but
Maybe.
you know, if he showed flashes, we probably would have embraced him.
That's a
But
good
who
point.
knows?
Yeah.
You know, and the Sixers for like the first 4 years of Iverson's career weren't any good. So it's
Yeah.
not like he
Pierce
wouldn't have had time.
Pierce would have been amazing.
Well,
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, he would have come into his own. He would have. Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. He probably would have come into his own and been good. He's that great. I mean, he's obviously a Hall of Famer. And but Pierce was good right away. You know, he would have been great.
Pierce would have thrived in Philadelphia. And you know, there's a lot of similarities between the Philly media and the Boston media. So, you know, Pierce would have been fine. But the thing is, that there was just nobody he played with who was any good, and he still managed to average a decent amount of assists. And so it's not like he didn't pass the ball. It's like, who's he going to pass to? Rodney Buford? Like, that's an actual guy. That's the actual name of someone who played with him for multiple seasons. And you should have no idea who that is, you know? But
yeah.
I mean, when he played in All-Star games, he passed the ball and he was good, you know. But
yeah, was Tyrone Hill like how good was he? Because I remember him being like a good defender, kind of like just like a solid. I'm looking through his. He was at the tail end of his career actually when he went to Philly.
he was a decent defender and a decent rebounder, but like
It wasn't that good.
nobody else on that team could score. And so, you know, you're talking about a guy who had to average 20, 25 shots a game because who else was going to take those shots?
Well, he averaged for his career, he averaged the fourth most shots of all time per game. Iverson did 21.8. So it's Elgin Baylor, 23.8, Michael Jordan, 22.9, Wilt Chamberlain, 22.5, Iverson, and then Pete Maravich to round out the top five, 21.3. So yeah, he took like a historic number of shots per game.
He had to.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
no,
I, mean,
I believe you. I believe you. I just he was just like a classic volume shooter, man. I mean, he had, and it's kind of what I see some similarities in what he did to what Harden has done recently, you know, just like the whole offense goes through them and they get lots of usage, take lots of field goal attempts. But it's insane. So like Iverson in 2001, 2002, he these are the kind of stat lines he put up per year, which is it's just really kind of crazy. Just like the usage and the minutes. So 43.7 minutes a game. He took 27.8 shots a game. He hit 11 of them, so that's a 39.8 field goal percentage. He shot 29% from 3. He put up 31 points a game, 2.8 steals, 5.5 assists, 4.5 rebounds. So that's like one of his worst shooting percentage years, but those are the kind of years that he put up like consistently, usually like in the 42% shooting range. But it's just like something you just don't see nowadays, you know? So it was like shocking to look back at some of these years he put up.
Yeah, I mean, his saving grace is that he was a very good free throw shooter. You know, he shot 81% from the line that year on 10
Yeah.
shots a game. So,
yeah. And he got to the line quite a bit.
You compared him to James Harden, but James Harden's 6'5", man. And
I know.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Iverson was like 5'10". So, you know, it's like he was doing these things when nobody his size should have been able to do them. You know, there is no real modern comparison to him. Like how big is Trae Young? Maybe Trae Young, but like
no, because Trae Young doesn't go inside as much as him. I mean, Iverson. I was looking at highlights of him, just kind of refreshing my memory. The dude would like get into the teeth of the defense, get like pounded. He got fouled a lot. I mean, for his size, he was also great at mid range. Like his mid range shot was pretty sweet. But yeah, he would get into the teeth of the defense, man. I mean, he was like. Yeah, James Harden is like 6'5", 6'6", and Iverson's like 5'10", so that's like almost an 8-inch difference. And he was the whole offense. But another thing I noticed watching highlights and just remembering how quick the dude was. Like I've never seen there's not a player that I've seen in today's NBA who's as quick as him. Like Steph Curry is not as quick as him, not even close. Steph Curry is like makes quick movements. But like when you combine quick movement, like he makes a quick move, but he doesn't get to the rim as fast as Iverson. You know, Iverson was like cat-like in his agility. Unreal watching some of these highlights. Like he just, and the fact that he could play above the rim a little bit, especially earlier in his career, was pretty impressive too. Like being that size, it's just really. I agree. There's not many players you can compare him to. Maybe Tiny Archibald, but like I've only seen grainy highlights of him. I haven't seen him consistently, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know enough about him to make that comparison. I mean, Iverson's the fastest NBA player I've ever seen.
Me too.
And he was also like one of the greatest high school football players of all time. Like he would have excelled at any sport, you know.
Totally. So, soccer. People always talk about soccer. He would have been amazing.
Yeah, he would have been maybe the greatest soccer player of all time if he grew up playing it. But but that's the thing is like you talk about him going into the teeth of the defense. Like he'd go straight at guys who were a foot bigger than him and 100 pounds heavier, and he'd still make weird ass shots. And that's the part that always just made me laugh. Like how the fuck is he doing this?
Yeah, and he was relentless too.
Over again.
Yeah, he created, and it's true. You brought up a really good point about the big guys that surrounded them. So like, they weren't great offensively, but there were some great rebounders. You know, like these big power forwards and centers, Mutombo, Ratliff, Hill. Who was some other big dudes they had to like get all these offensive rebounds. Their team in a strange way worked really well around him.
I will not let you forget Matt Geiger.
Oh yeah, Matt Geiger. I just saw him in a highlight package I watched this morning too. I can't believe I forgot that glute.
That's the kind of dude that he dragged to the finals, you know, and it just.
And they beat the Lakers that first game, which was amazing. I remember watching that, being like, "Yes, please beat the Lakers."
Yeah, I mean that was probably the highlight of my sports fan life at that time. That's sort of how bleak things had been, and because like I knew they weren't going to win the series, I just was like, just win one game, and they won the one game. And I was like, they're going to lose the next 4, and then they lost the next 4, but like the step over of Tyronn Lue. Like that made it all worth it, you know. Like
it was so nasty.
Yeah, there's got to be a mural of that somewhere in Philadelphia. I don't know where, but I'm sure it exists.
There's got to be. I mean, that's like his signature play, I would say. And
That or
like
the
what?
crossover of Jordan. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Good point. But like his and that's a good reason to just bring up his. Some would say his signature move of the crossover. I mean, Tim Hardaway obviously that was his signature move, but but Iverson, he did like the dipsy do, like the double crossover where he crossed you over once. Like there's one of Antonio Daniels where he crosses him over, and Antonio Daniels is like teeter tottering, like he basically is like wobbling around like some Ben Golliver, this podcast we listen to, he says stumps on skates. Like it's what it looks like a an animal with like hooves trying to like walk on ice or something, and or stumps
Mhm.
on ice. I'm butchering this, but he was just like wobbling around, and then he crossed him over again, and he just like fell over on his ass, and it was, I gotta say, like his highlight packages are filled with with crossovers like that. It's just like nasty, like embarrassing, humiliating crossovers, like sending people like breaking ankles, sending people falling on the hardwood over and over again.
Yeah, I think that play ended Antonio Daniels' career. Um, like maybe not
I think
officially,
so.
but it's. I
Just
mean, it's amazing that
wobbling
Lou
and
was able
falling
to
on your
recover from
butt. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
that. It's amazing that Lou was actually able to recover from that and like win a championship as a coach. So
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I mean, it's become a meme at this point. It's something he's gonna have to live with, or he has been living with, and he will have to live with for the rest of his life, sadly. Um, but yeah, man, I was just looking through these stats, and I didn't realize how many times he averaged over 30 points a game. Like,
Yeah, I'm looking at that now. He averaged 33 in 05-06, and like in 72 games. Like it's not a small sample size.
and that was
So
the year before he got traded, right?
it was, yeah.
And he
Um,
put up a kind of that was like one of his better, that was the kind of year where, someone like myself who values like, percentages and stuff would like pause and be like, that was a hell of a year. I mean, the dude as a point guard slash shooting guard. I mean, he shot 25 shots that year a game basically. He shot 44, almost 45% from the field. That's excellent. I mean, for that kind of volume, that is like really efficient, and that's impressive. 44.7, field goals percentage or whatever. That's really good. And 33 points a game. That's like one of his best years, I would say. One of his like most efficient and best statistical years at age 30 for a 5'10", light player. It's excellent.
yeah, after he'd been averaging 40 minutes a game or more for the first 9 years of his career. So
Yeah, it was also his second highest minutes per game, 43.1.
yeah, he was oddly unbreakable, and it was again, that you ask why Philadelphia loved him. It's because you couldn't watch him and be like, that guy's not trying. You watched him and you realized he was putting everything he had out there, and maybe you wish what he had was a better 3-point shot, but he was who he was, and that's the biggest reason we love him. I mean, he had what, 4 seasons where he averaged 30 a game,
I
and
think I think it's, yeah, 4. Yeah, you got it. I was gonna say 5, but
like
I think you're right, 4.
no, that fifth one is part of the season, so
Yeah, yeah.
because it was before he got traded.
Mm,
But I mean, his career average is 26.7. Like that includes several years at the end where he didn't average that much. So
exactly.
again, fourth all time in points per game, 30th all time in total points, fourth all time in minutes per game, and the only other guy in the modern era who's in the top 10 is Latrell Sprewell for some reason.
That's weird. Yeah. Mm,
Yeah, the guys ahead of him are Wilt, Russell, and Oscar, and then it's
wow.
Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, Jerry Lucas, Bob Pettit, Latrell Sprewell, and Dave Cowens in the top 10 for minutes.
Yeah, like what Latrell being on that list is strange. It's odd.
It is. LeBron is
Um,
12th, but
And as you said, like the assist numbers are kind of stand out to me too. I mean, he was routinely in those 10 years or 11, 10, 11 years, however long it was in Philadelphia, he was averaging well, he had some years where he was like 4.5 and in that range, but usually it was like, 6 over 6.5 or 7.5 assists a game. I mean, he was definitely dropping dimes. Um and again, the steals numbers. Now I want to get into the steals numbers a little bit. So talk more about what you were saying about how he would like gamble and try to get, because he knew he had those like two towers or those towers behind him, whether it be Geiger, Ratliff, Hill, or whoever else. Talk more about the gambling for steals.
Well, we talked about his speed, and like his signature move was to jump a passing lane, tip the ball ahead of him, and then make a layup before anybody else realized what happened. And he did that 2 or 3 times a game. Now,
Mm.
occasionally he would miss the pass, and it would lead to a wide open shot. But but he also knew that there were guys behind him who could protect the rim. So it and 3-pointers weren't exactly flying like crazy back then. So he could take those risks more. And I mean, but the thing is, like, he couldn't really be a great on the ball defender because he was so small. So
Mm.
he had to jump passing lanes and take risks that way.
Yep.
And it worked. I mean, he averaged more than 2 steals a game for like the first 9 years of his career. So
It's
and
crazy.
then
His steals numbers are out of control, man. And he won the steals title 3 years as well.
yeah, and while also winning the scoring title 2 of those years.
Yeah.
So
And the dude
yeah, I
had
mean, that's,
10 steals in a game. I'm just seeing
did
this
he?
now. In May 13th, 1999 against the Magic. Was he was with Philly then? Yeah, of course. Um
Yeah, yeah.
10 10 steals. So in that game, he also had 33 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. That's just another day at the office, but 10 steals. That's outrageous. I
Yeah,
think he had
he was pretty good.
I think he had oh, he also had 9 steals twice. Yeah, he had 9 no, I'm sorry, 9 steals 3 times. My god. Yeah. So he probably was like, if you average almost 3 steals in a season, that means there's going to be some games where you get like 1 and other games you'll get like 8, It's like I haven't combed through his game logs or anything to know for a fact, but like he probably has games where he's like, 7, 6, 5, then 0, then 3, then it's just like seeing that, and like that would be so eye popping in today's game. Like there's guys who get a lot of steals now. I mean, trying to think, like Westbrook gets a decent amount of steals. D'Anthony Melton on the Grizzlies this year has been getting a ton of steals, like strangely. But if you saw like a star getting that many steals, like that takes effort. That's like steals are an effort thing. Like Jason Tatum has cranked up his defense this year, and he's getting a lot more steals and blocks and everything. That's all like energy and effort. So that just ties into what you were saying about his energy level and how Philly faithful could see that he was trying all the time.
For sure. I mean, his rookie year, he had 5 straight games where he scored 40 or more points, and the last
Wow.
one he had 50, and they lost all 5. So, but again, like look at who was on the team with him. Like yeah, Jerry Stackhouse was there for that first year, and like Keith Van Horn, like that's who was there. Like it's Van Horn might have
Oh
been the next
God,
year.
the Pale
But yeah,
Rider.
like the Sixers had the second pick in the Tim Duncan draft, and it was fucking Keith Van Horn. So it's like
Jesus.
it was
Who
a
else was
combination of
available? Who else was available there? I can't remember. A
oh,
bunch of people, right?
let's take a look. But yeah,
It
I
was.
mean, well, no, certainly nobody anywhere near Duncan's level. But
Mm,
Chauncey Billups was there, and let's see. So yeah, Billups went third. The aforementioned Antonio Daniels went fourth, and then I'm looking at names here. So the guy that sticks out is Tracy McGrady at 9. Okay, but
mm.
nobody was like, oh, Tracy McGrady is going to be a future scoring champ for sure. You
Hall
know,
of
like
Famer, yeah.
taking Keith Van Horn there was not an absurd pick at the time, you know?
Yeah.
But had they taken Tracy McGrady and paired him with Iverson, I mean, Jesus, you know? That's
Yeah.
60 points a game right there, basically. And yeah, nobody else is shooting, but like that could have been quite a combo. But overall, this is a pretty shitty draft. I'm looking at it. It's bad. But other than Duncan himself and McGrady.
Mm.
But you know, they just never made the right pick. And I think that the next year was the Paul Pierce, Dirk Nowitzki year when they took Larry Hughes instead. Yep, they took Larry Hughes, and then the next two picks are Dirk and Paul Pierce. So, you know,
God.
it's and like nobody knew who Dirk Nowitzki was. Fine, but like right before they took Larry Hughes, everyone in Philadelphia was like, "Oh my God, they can take Paul Pierce," and then they took Larry Hughes. So, you know,
that's not good. That's
No.
even at the time that was bad, you know? Like
Yeah, we knew like nobody knew who Larry Hughes was. We all knew who Paul Pierce was. And so, you know, it was just a comedy of errors year after year in the draft when he was in his prime, just absolutely wasting his ability. And, you know, I'm looking at 99. I don't actually see who their pick was. Maybe they traded that pick. But, you know, it was just trash constantly. So, like, yeah, he took too many shots, but nobody else was going to take them. And
it created like a lot of activity for offensive rebounds, and you know, I mean, like as you said, it probably had to be done. I mean, who else was there? There's nobody else there to take the shots, so he was capable.
Yeah, we should look at that. Let's take a look at the roster that went to the finals, okay?
Okay.
The 2000-2001 roster, all right?
Nice.
I'm going to read off. Hold on. This is
Let's take a look. I'm curious about this.
So.
Yeah, I was looking through his game log, and I mean, there were stretches where, like here, 5 steals, 6 steals, 4, 1, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that is so gaudy. It's just like it really is really titillating for your boy Simmons here. I'm because like steals in DFS, steals are worth 3 points. So like a rebound's worth a point, like 1.2 points. An assist is 1.5. And so somebody who can get a lot of steals, like you get 5 of those, it's like scoring 15 points. So the fantasy numbers that Iverson would be putting up in these years is just astronomical.
Yeah, a lot of turnovers other than that. All right, so let's look at this team, right? This is a team that started 10-0, okay, wow, and finished 56-26. They were the number 1 seed. So here's their roster, okay? Raja Bell, Rodney Buford. Again, I was not making him up. He was a real person, okay? Matt Geiger, Tyrone Hill, Allen Iverson, Jermaine Jones, not the receiver for the Packers, Tony Kukoc, who was already washed at this point, okay? George Lynch, Todd McCullough, Vernon Maxwell, Aaron McKee. Now, obviously, these guys weren't there for the whole year, some of them, but like, just let me know when you hear a name of somebody good. Rashawn McLeod, Anthony Miller. I don't even know who Anthony Miller is. Nazi Muhammad. Okay, Dikembe Mutombo, who they acquired after trading Theo Ratliff. Kevin Ollie, Pepe Sanchez, and Eric Snow. This team won 56 games.
Wow. He dragged them.
And went to the finals.
One thing I'll say about that roster is they got a lot of big bodies, which is good for like rebounding and stuff, shot blocking. They probably had a damn good defense. I can't really remember, but
no, they did.
But offensively, you're right. I mean, none of those guys moved the needle, and it all fell on Iverson to do the heavy lifting. That's wild, man. Yeah, Pepe Sanchez. That's a blast from the past. I remember that name. What a funny name.
But right, you probably remember him more from like a really good Temple team like the year before.
Yeah.
They were a 2
Exactly.
seed and lost in like the Sweet 16. So, but it's
So
like
Iverson, well, I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say Iverson had a 35% usage rate for his career, which is quite high. It's not like the highest ever or whatever. Like for just to give you like perspective, Russell Westbrook had the highest in the 2016-2017 season. So, um, I'm sorry, this was 2004-2005. That's when Iverson had. Wait, they haven't. I'm sorry, they had these by year. So Iverson had the 20th. His highest ever was the sixth highest. He had a 37.78 usage rate in the 2001-2002 season. Then his next highest was the 15th all time. So that was the sixth. The 15th all time was Iverson at 35.92 in 2000-2001, and then in 2005-06, the 16th highest, 35.78. So he was consistently in like the 30 to 35 to even a 38 range of usage rate. So he had to do it, man. He just had to.
Yeah, and I'm looking again at the scoring stats for the season they went to the finals. He averaged 31.1. The second highest average on the team was Theo Ratliff, again, who they traded at 12.4.
Wow. Oh my
So
god.
Eric Snow was 9.8. Dikembe Mutombo, who they traded for, was 11.7. George Lynch 8.4. Aaron McKee 11.6. Tyrone Hill 9.6. Washed ass Tony Kukoc 8. Like, it's ridiculous that like these were the guys that he was dragging to the finals,
That
And
is
so,
fucking wow.
like, who do you want taking shots? Do you want Eric Snow to take 4 more shots a game? I don't.
Wait, is
So
this the year with Matt Harpring?
no, Harpring came later.
So what
Uh,
year? Tell me what year are you looking at right now?
2000, 2001, the year they went to the
Oh,
finals.
I was looking at 2001, 2002. Hold on a second. Gotta go back. Um, damn, dude, that's such a drop off. 31 to
Yeah,
12. My God.
right. And 12 is the guy they traded. So
Who was?
Theo Ratliff, remember, he wasn't even on the team in the
Yeah.
finals. So, it's like this is a team that George Lynch got hurt in the conference finals, and we were like, oh shit, no more George Lynch. Like, it's George fucking Lynch. Who cares? But he mattered to that team because they had nothing after Iverson.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, man.
George
These
Lynch was like,
yeah, George Lynch. So he was at 8.4 points a game. Holy
yeah,
God.
he's a perfectly fine player, but like he was a 3-and-D before that was a thing, and also his threes weren't that good. So,
And how old? Mutombo was 34 years old here. So he's at the tail end. He played a lot
yeah, and
more, but he wasn't as effective, obviously, like after this. This was like the very
right,
end
and
of his effective time.
I mean, he was still getting 12 rebounds a game. He was still blocking 2.5 shots, but like Shaq destroyed him in the finals.
Oh
Just
yeah.
absolutely murdered him.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's Shaq. Like you talk about peak Shaq is one of the most dominant forces the NBA has ever seen.
Yeah.
But like Mutombo was supposed to be somebody who could theoretically contain Shaq. No, that didn't happen. So it's like there are plenty of flaws to Allen Iverson's game, but you ask why we love him, it's because look at the shit he did and look at the help that he had.
Yeah, and the outside shooting numbers of the guys surrounding him is rough,
But
man.
not
Like Aaron McKee, who's supposed to be kind of like the sharpshooter, I guess, 31% from three. He did have a nice percentage from the field, 47%. But there's just not a lot of firepower on the. I mean, yeah, Tony Kukoc, 32-year-old Tony Kukoc took let's see, 1.6 threes a game, 41%. That's solid, but he barely saw it. I mean, he's played 20 minutes a game, so it wasn't like he was like a big part of the team. My God, yeah, but I do notice though that a lot of rebounding. like a lot of guys averaging a decent amount of rebounds. So I guess that was their whole like strategy, just lots of rebounding defense, and then Iverson was their offense.
I mean, it was a team that was designed around his strengths as best they could. This is I see some similarities to like this past year's Ravens and this
Mm.
team.
Oh yeah.
A singular talent at MVP. Everybody else was tailored to fit his his abilities, but it didn't quite work out in the playoffs, and they're going to need to make some changes. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that.
Yeah, like the book might be out on the Ravens a little bit now. I don't know. We'll see. I'm curious about that. We've been debating about that a little bit. I'm curious to see what will happen. Um, but just to give the listeners a quick overview of his yearly statistical outputs, I'm gonna cede the floor to you if you want to just run through some of these because I'm sure they make you feel really good inside.
Well,
Just the
to
points per
focus
game.
on
You can just do points per game for now if you want, or whatever you want to talk about.
his rookie year, 23.5. The next year, 22. 22 represents a low until his age 33 season, by the way.
That's wild. Yeah.
Third year led the league 26.8. Next year 28.4. Next year led the league 31.1. Next year led the league 31.4. The 31.1 year was his MVP year. Next year 27.6, 26.4, 30.7, and then his last 2 year in Philadelphia 33.
Yeah.
So
And that 28.4 year started a string of like all-star appearances every single year, right? Until he retired. Although some of them were like honorary, but
sure.
that's
But
wild.
yeah, every season from I guess 11 straight years, he was an all-star. And yeah, but he also played really well in those all-star games. So it's.
And he played well. Like his first little stint in Denver, or I guess not first one, but like when he first went to Denver, like those first couple years, 24.8 points a game, 26.4. I mean, he was pretty damn good, and he shot well there too. Like he shot over 45% both those first 2 years in Denver, which is surprising. I don't think I realized that. Still playing over
Yeah,
40 minutes a game.
Yeah, he was still really good, and then a very rapid drop off occurred. All those minutes caught up to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like again, and when he got traded, everyone in Philadelphia just became a Nuggets fan for a couple of years. So because there was nothing left on the Sixers. I mean, if you asked me to name like who was on those Sixers teams after Iverson got traded, aside from Andre Iguodala, like I don't know. I mean, and then like
right. Forgot he got traded. I forgot he played with him.
And in 2004, they were like, well, we're wasting this guy's prime. Let's bring in an old-ass Chris Webber. And that didn't work. So, but I remember when I found out the Chris Webber news, I even fell for it. I was excited. I was sitting at a bar with McGee in New York, and I was like, oh, shit, the Sixers got Chris Webber. And that was the high point of that entire experience, that moment knowing. So,
yeah,
it was all downhill from there. And it's not Chris Webber's fault. He's just old and broken. So.
Yeah, that was after his like Sacramento Kings run when he was surprisingly effective after that horrific injury he had that like basically stripped him of his athleticism. He was good with the Kings, but like the Kings offense was just so advanced and they had all these playmakers around him and the passing was so great that you could probably have, if you really thought about it, you could have foretold that would have been different when he went to the 76ers. But yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to be good with them too. I remember thinking like, oh, that's great for Iverson finally get some help, but it was not to be.
Sadly, it was not. No, if only it had been like 1999 Chris Webber. But such is the star-crossed nature of Allen Iverson's career. So.
Indeed, and the whole practice thing was became like a meme as well. But as you said, like the way he played in games, it really makes it confusing why that ever was a thing. It's like he went all out in games, and there was never any question of his effort or like how much he cared. Um, but at the same time, I mean, the man had some demons off the court. Definitely, you know, um, may have contributed to some of his shortcomings on the court. I don't know, but I kind of doubt that because he just busted his ass so much, and I mean, the output is cannot be debated. I mean, as we've touched on, he was the sole offensive force on the team, and he was energetic. It wasn't like it wasn't like some players where you're looking like, oh, he's not trying, or he's not. You know what I'm saying? It's like he was always trying. He always cared.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like the only thing about practice is like, well, maybe if he took 500 jumpers a day, his shooting percentage would have been better. But
Good
whatever.
point. That's a good point. I didn't want to say
But
it.
then again,
'Cause, yeah, but
maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. So like you get to a certain age and your jump shot is your jump shot. But it's
tell that to Ben Simmons. Yeah.
well, he's still young enough to change that. But also, I'm not sure his jump shot is bad because he doesn't take it. But that's
Yeah.
that's a different conversation. So
Yeah. Do you think he's like he needs to go see like a sports psychologist or something? Because it seems like a mental thing. Like
yeah, I
he's
think he needs to be
afraid.
hypnotized.
He's afraid.
He needs to be hypnotized. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. He
I don't know.
does.
And while they're at it,
Um,
they could get him to stop dating Kardashians. So, like,
that's
shoot the ball more, stop dating people from Los Angeles.
that's a
Okay.
tradition a little bit that will go on for decades to come. NBA players dating Kardashians. I fear that will be that's an impossibility. It's
I'm
like the
afraid you're
clouds in the
probably right.
sky, or the rain, water. I mean, water is wet. Kardashians will be dating NBA players. It's just something it's here to stay, my friend. Um, well, shit, man. So he's a Hall of Famer. He's God, 4-time scoring champ. He's Rookie of the Year. Anything else you want to touch on about this guy?
I will say that if you want to understand why Philadelphians love him, go watch his Hall of Fame speech if you haven't.
Hmm.
Because it's like 25 minutes. It's very tearful. It's all over the place. It's not efficient at all, so it's really true to him. But the highs are really high, and it's just great. So like I watch his Hall of Fame speech like once a year. So it's
I've only
absolutely
seen
worth
little snippets of it. Like I saw like a Twitter video, like a little snip. I'm gonna go watch the whole thing after
watch the whole
this.
thing, and then you should add like a 10-minute commentary to the end of this. It's incredible.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's why we love him, because he's very lovable and he's very human. A lot of these guys don't seem like real people. Allen Iverson absolutely seemed like a real person who just happened to be incredibly good at basketball.
Mm.
So
I might just play the speech at the end or something. We'll see. Curious about that.
again, it's 25 minutes, but
It's a long time. Yeah, it's a long time. Well,
yeah,
why don't you break it down a little bit? Like, what did he talk about?
oh, I can't do it justice, Ben. It's just he just talks about all the people who are important to him,
Mm.
and he saves the end for the Philadelphia fans, and it's like I cry when watching it
Well,
because
the audience
just
listening
the
right now
perception
should.
there.
Oh, sorry to cut you off, man. The audience watching right now should they should listen to it. They should watch it, and
It's on YouTube,
kind
and
of
it's great.
yeah, just like immerse yourself in that Philly Iverson relationship. It's something special though when you see players get like the fans love them that much, and there really is like a visceral like relationship between the two. And he was like Kobe in LA, like Iverson in Philly. That was it's a rare thing, especially in today's NBA. You know,
It is. Yeah.
because he did wear his emotions on his sleeve. He's not like a I hate to bring him up again, James Harden type. I feel like I'm kind of picking on him for some reason. Maybe because he's kind of annoying a little bit sometimes. But
It's also very good.
I also appreciate his skill. I mean, I'm not a James Harden hater. I mean, his playoff shortcomings are well documented, but I'm not a hater. Um, but no, Iverson, man, that emotion and everything, you love to see it in sports, and he's a one of a kind player, man. Like Russell Westbrook, I guess I just thought of that. Like he's kind of a little bit close to Iverson. He's bigger than Iverson though. That's the difference. He's like 6'5" or 6'3" or something.
Right. I think the closest parallel we've seen, I think, is probably like Isaiah Thomas before he got hurt. So
good point.
And he wasn't quite as good, but he was just a tiny volume scorer who that's just what he did. So
Yep.
and but we're not going to see another Allen Iverson. That's
You mean
sure.
you mean IT2 or the original Isaiah Thomas?
The second one.
Second one, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he had a couple of years there that were very Iverson-esque. 28 points a game. That was the culmination in 2016, 2017. Looking at it right now, he yeah, man, took 19 shots that year. Pretty good field goal.
He looked like he was a better shooter, but
I mean, Iverson had some years where he shot well. I mean, I was a little hard on him at the beginning, but like, he had. Let me try to get back to that first page. Yeah, he had his second year in the league, 46% from field. He had that 1 year I touched on 44%, and the next year, with two teams, 44%. Or I'm sorry, that was with 45% with Denver, and 44% total. Yeah, and then he had 45 again with Denver. I mean, he didn't have, not all his years were horrific or whatever, and he's like a late 90s, early 2000s NBA player basically. I mean, you look through Jerry Stackhouse's stats. You want to talk about volume shooting and horrible percentages. I mean, he's a poster child for that. So if that was just that era, it was a different era. And Gilbert Arenas is another one. Even Kobe, to a certain extent, So Iverson was a joy to watch. He was one of a kind. And yeah, I would say, like, definitely, if you haven't seen, to the audience, if you haven't seen his highlights, immerse yourself. Spend an hour looking through like his highlights. They're incredible. Like the speed, the athleticism, out of control. Especially when he was super young, like the put back dunks and like just crazy, man. Westbrookian for sure.
Yeah, he was something else. But
anything else you want to touch on?
I mean, not particularly. I think it's worth mentioning that he sort of like ushered in the hip hop culture aspect of the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I am hardly an expert on that myself, but just from a cultural impact standpoint, he was. You could argue that he made a bigger impact than just about anybody between like Jordan and LeBron. And I mean, yeah, there's Kobe, but Kobe wasn't the same kind of like cultural influence outside of Los Angeles that Iverson was, at least not in the early years.
Oh, not at all.
So,
I mean, Kobe was like a gym rat, barely went like socialized with anybody, barely. I mean, he would like celebrate and stuff, and the fans loved him, but like he didn't interact with them as much as Iverson. Iverson you're right, he kind of owned that era culturally for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was the coolest player in the NBA, and he's probably like the singularly like coolest guy for the last 20 years. I don't even know who else would be up there with him, but
That's a very Philly thing for you to say, but yeah, it's
come up with somebody else who had that kind of cultural cachet.
I mean, in the NBA.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure they exist. I'm not saying they don't, but like.
Oh, I thought you meant like all people.
No. Just NBA players last 20 years. So
I think you're probably right about that, honestly. I think you're right. I mean, it wasn't John Stockton.
No, although speaking of people near and dear to my heart, for very different reasons. But
talk about two completely different players, although both were tenacious and both got a lot of steals. So maybe not so different on the court. All right, man. This is a lot of fun, and yeah, everybody go watch Iverson's Hall of Fame speech. I'm gonna watch it and become Sixers fans for a brief moment there. This is a lot of fun, Dan.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Likewise, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you. Bye.
So Gaudy. So Gaudy. Gaudy stats. Gaudy stats. Gaudy